Archie Bunker's chair was originally purchased at a thrift shop for $8, but then halfway through the series, it was gone, and they had to recreate it, and it became the most expensive to make prop in the history of television. I've got a lot of great stories about this chair, so pour yourself a cold one. Take it away, Archie.
Television's grown up now. No one needs a marriage vow. Folks go to the toilet now. These are the days.
Norman Lear was the creator of All in the Family. He actually based All in the Family on a British show.
In the old days, women got married for better or worse, and bloody grateful it was not to be left on a shelf. I mean, when I married her, she was lucky to get me.
He did this a couple times with taking a British show and making an American version. There was a British show called Steptoe and Son that became the basis for Sanford and Son. And by the way, the name Sanford came from John Sanford, which was Red Fox's real name. So Norman based All in the Family on Till Death Us Do Part. But the character of Archie Bunker was based on Norman Lear's father, and he had a special chair in the living room. Now, they didn't have television, but they would gather around the radio, and Dad would always sit in his chair as they listened to Jack Benny or Eddie Cantor. Now, he said his dad's personality didn't have as many flaws as Archie's, but he said there were a lot of comparisons between Archie Bunker and his dad and Edith Bunker and his mom. And he thought that it was important that these characters reflect real-life people. It aired from 1971 to 1979, and for 5 of those 9 seasons, it was the #1 rated show in the country. They earned 22 Emmy Awards for the show. It was created by Norman Lear, but also a name I always loved seeing in the credits as a kid, Bud Yorkin. All in the Family was not a hit at first. In fact, it took forever to get it from idea to the screen. In 1968, they did a pilot for it called And Justice for All, with not Archie Bunker, but Archie Justice.
All right, little girl. You just go on over there and mind your own beeswax. And pull that skirt down, will you? Every time you sit down on one of them things, the mystery's over.
And the next year, they shot another pilot, new title this time. It was called Those Were the Days.
Listen, little girl, you just mind your own beeswax, huh? And pull that skirt down. Every time you sit down on one of them things, the mystery's over.
But the chair in the living room on both of the pilots does not match the chair that we got to know and love.
There ain't nothing to talk. There's nothing to talk about. Now there's something to talk about.
All in the Family has the most spin-offs of any primetime television show in the history of American television. It directly spawned 5 TV shows. 3 of them were huge hits, and 2 of them actually inspired spin-offs of their own. The first spin-off was Maude. Edith's cousin Maude was played by B. Arthur.
You're in my chair, Maud.
So?
I want to sit in my chair.
Oh?
You gonna get out of my chair?
No.
And Good Times was actually spun off from this show because Florida was the maid for Maude. The maid for Maude. Sounds like a French dessert.
Well, hello, you must be Mrs. Evans. I hope you didn't have any trouble finding us.
Oh, no, ma'am. I heard you all the way from the bus stop.
The Jeffersons came on next in 1975. Originally, the Jeffersons were next-door neighbors to the Bunkers.
Say, Jefferson, are you asking to come into my house?
No, Bunker. I wouldn't come in there, not even if you got down on your hands and knees and sang Mammy.
And this show ended up being arguably more successful than All in the Family. It lasted for 11 seasons and 253 episodes, which was more than All in the Family's 9 seasons and 208 episodes. There was a show called Checking In that was a spin-off of The Jeffersons, which was about Florence the maid going on to work at a hotel in New York City.
Here I am, checking in through a brand new door.
And it lasted only for a few weeks. Archie Bunker's Place is technically a spin-off, although it's really just a continuation of the show.
80% of restaurants die.
How come nothing's ever made it next door? The kosher ramen Chinese deli didn't make it. Susie's Sashimi Shack didn't last a month.
That is because none of them people serve nothing unusual.
What food's unusual nowadays?
American.
It lasted for another 4 years, so the show continued on the air forever. I mean, these episodes focused around the bar, but they still had scenes back at the house, and it still felt like the same show. In 1982, there was a spin-off called Gloria. And this was about Gloria having left Mike and now working as a veterinarian. And the last one was a show called 704 Hauser Street, which took place in the Bunker's house, but years later after the Bunkers have moved out and a black family has moved in. Now, unlike Archie Bunker, who was conservative with a son-in-law who was liberal, in this one you have a dad who was very liberal and his son is very conservative.
Are you gonna tell me that's supposed to be a black man talking?
A man can be black without feeling like a perpetual victim, Pop.
Oh, so we just feel like victims, do we?
Yeah.
A mind is a terrible thing to waste.
So the chair was eventually donated to the Smithsonian, which was a huge deal. It became a big national news story, and people debated whether it was appropriate for the Smithsonian to have Archie Bunker's chair installed in it. And to this day, they still display it a lot. The Smithsonian is known for having such a vast collection that such a small little part of it ever gets displayed. And when I grew up, the things that I knew were in the Smithsonian was Archie Bunker's chair, Fonzie's jacket, Evel Knievel's jumpsuit, and Charlie McCarthy. Now, I've been there a bunch of times, and some of those items I've never seen on display. But every time I've been there has been a time where Archie Bunker's chair has been on display. And when they did the movie Night at the Museum, Night at the Smithsonian, they made sure to include Archie Bunker's chair.
Whoever you were, Archie Bunker, you had one comfortable throne.
But they had a problem. They had donated the chairs at the end of the 8th season because that was going to be the end of the show. Gene Stapleton and Carol O'Connor wanted too much money to return, so the show was done. After the chairs were donated to the Smithsonian, the network found some extra money, and soon they were ready to come back, but they had no chair. They reach out to the Smithsonian and say, hey, can we borrow the chair back for another year? And they said, we're not a lending library. And so they needed to recreate the chair.
Just the fabric of this chair, no mills, no looms could make it anymore. One factory in France could retool and make the exact fabric. The fabric on this chair cost $16,000 in 1975.
Now, the rest of the set from All in the Family was packaged up and kept in a storage unit by Norman Lear. He thought maybe at some point they would do a reunion episode, but they never did. And a few years back, they sold the entire set with the staircase and all of the furnishing except for the chairs. And it was purchased for $125,000. Now, the chairs that were used for the final season and Archie Bunker's place were also auctioned off and sold for double the price of the set, $250,000. And the winning bidder was talk show host Glenn Beck.
How much of this is actually from the set?
100% of this is the actual set. Everything from the set.
December 1975, they have a 2-part episode where Joey Michael Stivic is introduced, the baby son of Gloria and Michael. Then in 1976, the Ideal Toy Company put out the Archie Bunker's grandson doll, and it's anatomically correct.
Archie Bunker's grandson, Joey Stivic by Ideal, is a physically correct boy doll.
What a great idea.
A little girl will love playing mommy to a baby boy for a change, especially sweet Joey Stivic. He is a beautiful doll. I'm not going to show you guys. All right, I'll show you. But that's it. I'm not going to show you. Okay, that's it. I'm not showing you anything else. But this was him. It was rather controversial at the time, but today it's kind of a collector's item. Thank you to Jose, who's on my Patreon page. He gave me this. I thought this was one of the most wonderful gifts a man could. And shout out to my buddy Rob, who bought me this. People seem to be content. $50 paid the rent. freaks were in a circus tent. Is there a little bit of Archie in all of us? The All in the Family game. This is a great person-to-person game for young and old. They've got questions and answers, and you would say, for Archie, what is a sheer luxury? And he says, a free cigar, a tall beer, and a big argument. It's pretty neat. And they have these cards where you would write your responses and that you'd put them in this answer folder. They put out record albums. This is the second All in the Family album, and it's got the chair front and center. It's just audio clips from the show. They'll put entire sequences. I loved listening to this when I was a kid. This one has the Sammy Davis Jr. episode where Archie let Sammy Davis Jr. sit in his chair.
Yeah, sit right down here, Mr. Davis, right in my chair. Make yourself comfortable. It's the best in the house.
It's interesting. On the bottom, in small print, it says the Yiddish proverb quoted by the TV repairman in the Man on the Street episode. That's the one where Archie's going to be on television with Walter Cronkite. He was interviewed for the news, and Mike breaks the TV by smacking on the side of it. And so they get the TV repairman, but he's an Orthodox Jew, so he has to leave before sundown. And so Archie has an argument with him, and then he turns around and says,
Mr. Bunker, I can only answer that insult with an old Jewish expression. Zijn Leben in a Haus mit a Toys and Zimmers is als huppen a boig bietig at jede Zimmer. What the hell does that mean? Well, you never know, but believe me, I got even.
It's translated as follows: you should have a hotel with 1,000 rooms and get a stomach ache in each room. Do you want a postcard from the Ramada Inn of Topeka, Kansas? Well, you could get one if you sign up for my Patreon, patreon.com. Just $3 will get you a postcard every single month. Sign up today. Be like Michael and Jessica, my big brother Rob Hutchinson, Chris, and Matthew David Chapin, the beer party candidate. This is a pin you could get that says, I'm a dingbat for Bunker. I like this. The Foist family. These were wonderful novelties and were pretty popular in their day. And some people wanted to vote for Meathead. This is an anti-Nixon pin that refers to Phase 2 of the Economic Stabilization Act of 1970. Tire Kingdom. What are you doing? All in the Family did have an arc in season 9 where they went out to California to see the Stivics. It's actually pretty easy to do that because even though the show took place in New York, it was filmed in California, so all they had to do was walk outside. They did not go on a Hawaiian vacation, however. Sanford and Son did, as did Sesame Street, The Brady Bunch, The Rockford Files, Saved by the Bell. I put together a video of all the Hawaiian vacations I could find. You can find it right up there. Otherwise, that's the one that YouTube says is best for you. And there's a second channel now. It's almost at 225 subscribers. You go make it 226. I'll see you next time.